If a child is obese, should they be taken out of their family home, away from the fatty meals and snacks, and put into care to help them lose weight? A health expert from the National Obesity Forum thinks so. Tam Fry says parents who overfeed their children are just as bad as those who starve them. As far as he's concerned, it's abuse. If you can't keep your children slim and healthy through exercise and good food, then you shouldn't be allowed to look after them at all, he says. It's estimated 1 million children in England will be obese within 5 years. So is a very overweight child a child that's being seriously neglected by mum and dad? Tam's with us now, board member of the National Obesity Forum, and so is Rob Lyons, who writes on health for Spiked Online. Tam, let's just be clear what it is that you're proposing here. Are you suggesting that if a kid's body mass index or whatever it is in the obese range, they should be hoiked away and put into a children's home?
Well, I would go a little further than that. I would say that there are degrees of obesity, and what I am most concerned about is the degree of obesity where there is a danger to the child's future, both in terms of health and also in terms of quality of life. And you're talking there, if you want to talk BMI, at a level which is maybe twice the level of an adult who is obese. So you're talking gross.
So it's extreme cases that you're
Correct,
talking
yes,
about now.
yeah.
So there would only be a few of these people, would there?
Hopefully there will only be a few, but I think that recent statistics have shown that there are more and more of them. But I guess you're probably talking in terms of tens and hundreds as opposed to thousands.
But if a child is in this grossly obese state, they're obviously having psychological as well as physical problems. Isn't it just going to make it worse if you take them away from their parents and put them into the state system?
No, because in this instance, we would not advocate total removal. What is necessary is that the child be moved into an environment, if you will, a pediatric ward of a hospital, where his weight can be addressed by qualified people, but still allowing contact with the parents. And that is the link which is so vital in this. But at the same time, the parents are then, if you will, they get a makeover from social services or whatever, to look at the cause of the problem. And the cause of the problem could be multifarious. And then once the cause of the problem has been sorted out and the child has been reduced in its weight, then they can go back to living a family life.
So you compulsorily put the child in hospital and keep them there whether they like it or not?
That would be the extreme end, and I think that you may well find that the child actually welcomes that, because unfortunately sometimes, children are very obese and they suffer tremendously, but at the moment they are forced, because they're vulnerable, to live in the environment and their home environment from which there is no escape. So if you will, this may be an escape route which the children really do want and work at, and then they go back. There will be the parents who balk at that.
Well, the parents will be very distressed, won't they?
Well, the parents may not be so distressed, because the parents may themselves have a cry for help and then welcome the social services in, because the parents, unfortunately in this country, we don't really educate our parents. We don't teach our children how to be parents. We don't teach them about how to raise children. We don't teach them to cook. We don't teach them to do lots of things which used to happen when we were all slim back in the good old days in the last century. And now, fortunately, we're starting to reinvent the wheel. We're starting to teach children about food and how to cook, and hopefully how to be good parents in the future.
Okay, Rob Lyons from Spiked Online. What do you make of this proposal?
I think it illustrates the extent to which the hysteria about obesity means that nothing is ruled out of bounds anymore. I mean, I really do think that taking a child out of a family home, unless they're in really immediate danger, is completely unacceptable. I can't think that putting a child in hospital or in a care home is a better situation than being with a parent who is interested in looking after them.
But what if the parent is part of the problem? What if the parent sees love being feeding them with chips and cream cakes and junk food? What if the parent is in a kind of spiral that they can't break out of, as Tam suggests?
I think because we've heard so much about obesity, we've got to the stage now where we think that obesity is a disease and that you will die from it very quickly if you don't sort it out. And I think that's completely overblowing the situation as it stands. Yes, people are getting fatter, and there's a few cases where they're getting very fat, but I don't think that this is an answer to it. Really, why we've got much bigger, or why some people have got much bigger over the last 20 or 30 years, still isn't really well understood, I don't think. And so pulling out a fairly illiberal solution like this, I think, is a really, really bad idea.
But there are some kids who are getting into such a state where, I suppose Tam would argue, it is child abuse. You know, it's the same as, on the other end of the scale, malnourishment. And if you saw a child that wasn't being fed properly, that was starving, you'd take it into care and you'd look after it. I'm sure Tam's argument is that overfeeding is equally bad on the other end of the scale.
No, I don't think the two things are equivalent. I think that a child who is overweight will probably, in all likelihood, be getting all the nutrients that they need. They'll obviously have this capacity to store too much of that as fat. But a lot of the time, that's a genetic thing. It's a family history of this kind of thing. So the amount of food that's being intaken isn't really the problem. Whereas a child who's simply not being fed is definitely going to suffer as a result of that.
So Tam, it could be a genetic problem. It could be that the child is fine, but it's just got a genetic problem that it puts on a lot of weight.
Well, there you've put your finger on it. There is indeed, and we all recognise, a genetic problem, a genetic disposition. But whereas in the past people have said, oh, doc, it's in my genes, I can't do anything about it, what we now need to do is to identify those children with the genetic problem by genetic testing, and then, if you will, equip the parents by saying, your child unfortunately has a selection of genes which will predispose it to obesity. Do not hide behind this as an excuse. Recognize that you've got to be ultra careful of what that child eats. And hopefully at some stage, 5-10 years from now, all this will be a thing of the past, because we will be able in utero to diagnose these people and then put in the kind of procedure which will make them not fat in the first place, and that is the crucial thing.
But your thing of taking people by compulsion into hospital sounds like a terribly draconian and drastic action.
It is.
Are there not other actions that could be taken short of taking them away from their parents?
There are actions which can be done, such as pharmacological treatment, but that is not applicable when the children are growing. So the children are, 16 years in their growth, and so you've got to look at the child, the age of the child, and what sort of problem you are addressing, and then take the action. And it could be that your 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, drug therapy will work, in which case you go with the drugs. But in your younger children, that may not be the case.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for joining the debate with us. Tam Fry, board member of the National Obesity Forum, and Rob Lyons, who writes on health for Spiked Online.